So let's talk about the impact then also on the travel and event industry. We've got Manav Thadani joining us this morning, as well as Vikram Mehta. Good morning to both of you. Manav, hi, this is Abha. And, we're all wondering of the extent of the impact of the coronavirus. Let's talk about the impact it's already had first, in terms of cancelled plans, shutdown on travel, cases actually being discovered in certain hotels, even within India. Is the situation starting to look a little bit grim? Because until last week, we were still hoping India was relatively insulated.
Well, I think it would have been ignorant on our part to say that this would have avoided India. But I do believe that we need to be pragmatic about it. We need to be preventive about it, and we need to be not pushing the panic button. I would rather look at the positives of, looking at China. Just yesterday, Marriott hotels have reopened. Apple has said they'll start production again. Starbucks are reopening. So I think people need to look at this, in the medium term as to how things might get worse in the short term, but then there will be potentially a turnaround and things will start getting back to normal. And I think we just need to be careful. Will this have an impact? Sure, it has had some impact on the industry. If you look at the full year, we had elections, we had a slowdown in the economy, and then this came out of the blue. Fortunately, January went by relatively smoothly. February has been impacted, and I can see the next 2 to 3 months being impacted. But historically, we've seen there's always been a very sharp V growth when these things have subsided. So we can only hope that things will turn around.
Vikram, hi, morning. What's been your experience? Has there been an increase in the rate of cancellation of trips after the outbreak? And if so, which destinations are getting most impacted, according to you?
Good morning. Not in the immediate future, but I think in the sense of what was with weddings, it obviously works in the sense where we plan, I think, a few months in advance. So I think anything and everything till June has kind of had a direct impact right now. But as someone who does destination weddings, I can tell you that I think the impact is more to do with the fear that people would not be traveling to the wedding or the numbers. Obviously, the 11 countries that have been impacted the most are the ones that come under the radar. But the fear has kind of now spread across Middle East, Gulf, Bahrain as well. Those are hot destinations for weddings. Asian ones, the Southeast Asian ones. So I think Thailand is one which has probably been hit the most in terms of Indian weddings. It generally was, like Mr. Manav said, with the economy. And now with the whole coronavirus thing, Thailand is probably the one that's hit the most. What weddings we have lined up in the next 3-4 months, we're already taking precautionary measures from our side, talking to the tourism departments, trying to figure options out in terms of how the airlines react to it in terms of travel. But it's just a spectator's game right now. All we can do is kind of wait and watch and see if the whole hysteria around it subsides, or people find a way to realize that, we kind of understand how serious an issues as compared to the viruses or flus or that had come out in the past. So it's a spectator's sport right now. We just have to wait and watch and kind of take it easy.
Absolutely. And it's a strange business that you're in that sense, because this is not a holiday that you would completely cancel. You would obviously get married. At best, you're just going to postpone the event. But then again, I'm guessing, people would downsize on how much they're going to spend, perhaps. If it's a domestic destination wedding, then obviously it's going to be much cheaper than perhaps a wedding in Italy or somewhere in Thailand.
I think there are a lot of angles to it, in the sense where it's not just about how much you want to spend, in the sense of also where are the guests coming from, because when you do destination weddings, or even if you're in India, you do have guests coming from all over the world. So that kind of is something you have to be careful about. The numbers, you kind of cut down the numbers or the commitments that you do in terms of the guarantees to hotels or caterers or to the decoration, all of that. So they are more circumspect in that. And the other thing is the insurance bit, where people now consider taking insurance or getting the wedding or the flights covered. It's something that is a new angle that's been added now, which was not that prevalent before. But yes, I think weddings, which we plan 6 to 8 months in advance. So weddings that are in December, they already have started discussing something of the sorts that you said, where they ask safer than sorry,
Manav, a lot of global events in the hospitality industry have already been cancelled. Just recently, one in Germany that was slated this week. You also have the much touted Hixa that's usually scheduled around this time or early April, I think. Any changes to those plans, particularly with respect to even some of the global guests that perhaps were intended to come?
So we've obviously in the last 48 hours had a lot of discussion around that. I, in fact, just yesterday have spoken to around 5 or 6 of the Indian CEOs. And the encouraging part is that they've all said, let's wait and watch at least for another week. I think there's a big, I want to highlight the difference between some of the global conferences that have been postponed or cancelled. Most of them had 80 to 90% of the people coming from overseas. In the case of our event, I think 85% of the people are from India itself. And of the remaining, it's still to be judged whether some of them will cancel or not. We've had one person who said they would prefer not to come because they were coming from one of the harder hit countries. But other than that, we're going to wait and watch and see how things are in the next few days before taking a final call.
Manav, and to get your perspective, since you do work so closely with some of the leading groups, is already reeling from the impact. Do you see, this quarter taking a hit on the back of that, even if we do see a recovery post, but immediately, do you see quite an intense hit?
Sure. I like I said, if you were to just break up the current quarter, January went by relatively smoothly. February and March will certainly get impacted, and perhaps beyond that. And I think the hotels will take a decent amount of hit. But we also need to be cognizant that the peak season for hotels is typically between October and February. So yes, there has been an impact, and it would be ignorant on our part. What that turns out to be in terms of percentages for the year could be anywhere 10, 15 or 20%, but that's just an estimate right now because we don't know how long this will last. And like I said, when SARS happened back 16 or 17 years ago, the Indian hospitality sector actually benefited. So there were short-term losses, but in the long term, we genuinely benefited because people stopped traveling overseas. A lot of functions started happening within the country. So I think the next few days are important, as we see how the spread in India takes place, if at all. And even if it does, to what extent? And I think if people don't push the panic button, we should come through with this.
Manav, Vikram, both of you, thank you so much for joining in and telling us in candid a way as to how your businesses get impacted. Let's only hope that the unrest because of coronavirus and the virus itself abates hopefully soon.